Today, I deleted the strongest country until there's only one country left. 95% of you guys aren't subscribed, so if you want to see more videos like this, which I'll be posting every single day, please subscribe. Every 5 years, I will be deleting the strongest country until there's only one left. So you basically don't want to be the biggest, the strongest country, whatever you want to call it. But I mean, Russia right now is clearly on the chopping block. They're probably going to go down first. United States, Canada are all also on the chopping block. So it's basically hopefully going to come down to one of the smaller nations, but you want to still be a big nation, but you just don't want to be the biggest nation. Someone like India, maybe Australia, Kazakhstan. These are all really good players, but I think someone like Kazakhstan is going to go down really early just because they're going to be taking over a lot of Russia's land. But we will kind of see what goes down. A lot of stuff has already happened so far, but nothing really crazy. But let's see who the strongest nation is. Yeah, it's not even close. It's Russia, and Russia is going to get deleted. Rest in peace to Russia. I mean, I normally hate on them, but this is the one time they kind of get set up as the worst nation here. But seeing who takes over all of Russia's land, it's going to be a lot of Kazakhstan, a lot of Mongolia as well, and China. A lot of nations that probably wouldn't be normally that big or that important, but now they're doing pretty well. And if you do take over this land, like Mongolia is going to be in a pretty poor position. Honestly, I don't know if they'll be better or in a worse position than someone like Canada, but wow, China is taking over a ton of land as well. China definitely looks to be next on the chopping block, in my personal opinion. I mean, we will very much see. It is 2035 though, so it is time to take out another nation, and that one is going to be China. So a lot of land to be gobbled up by North Korea, Japan, Kazakhstan, India. A ton of different nations are going to gobble up a ton of that new land, but it's gonna be very interesting to see if people like the United States, India, Brazil, even Australia, like they're all those like top nations, but they're not as top as like Russia or like Kazakhstan here, like with a ton of land. If they just continue to just get out of they're not going to be in the sights of everyone because they're not the strongest nation. They're just in one of the best positions. But a lot has kind of gone down. I mean, even in Africa, like there's Chad going down, there's Algeria going down. Like there is a good amount of like actual territory disputes. Nothing really happening in Europe. I mean, I see Portugal is down, and like Italy technically is not in a good position, and Tunisia is looking pretty solid, but nothing extremely crazy there. Nothing extremely crazy in North America either. But coming up on 2040, and it's going to be Kazakhstan. I mean, the United States and Canada has really just somehow pulled out of it, but I don't think the United States or Canada is really in a good position. I mean, whoever takes over all this land is going to get a ton of land and be in a not the greatest spot, but I think the United States and Canada will be the next two to be deleted because this should be pretty evenly divided between these last couple of nations. So that should be good for anyone outside of the United States and Canada. But if you are the United States and Canada, I mean, you're definitely in a pretty poor position. But I think that'll be really interesting because if Canada goes down, the United States is definitely next on the list, which just means Mexico will go down next. And just really interesting to see how these like kind of things they said in their own chain reaction of events. And it is 2045, and that looks like Canada is number one, so they're going down, and the United States is going to take over basically all that land there. So I feel like it's very unlikely that anyone else besides the United States loses next. I mean, we will see, but I mean, just look, it's all the United States land. Greenland does get a little bit of it, and Greenland could become a power in their own right just because they will be taking over a lot of that land. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that goes. India is extremely strong. Kyrgyzstan is also strong in their own right, but India is doing extremely well in Asia. I mean, also a lot of people are doing well in Europe, but it's just very interesting because you don't want to be the strongest nation. You definitely want to be the weakest nation, and it is 2050, so the United States, rest in peace to you guys. It's also not going to be looking good for Mexico and Greenland. They might survive a little bit longer, but I think just the fact that it's just them two taking over this land means they're probably next up on the chopping block. Wow. Japan is also taking over a lot of the United States land in Asia, so that's also probably not good for them. But India looks really good. I mean, I also need to just recolor Kyrgyzstan because they just need to look a little different. But yeah, India's looking great. Oh, the Bahamas also has a good amount of the United States territory, so that's pretty interesting as well. You have Estonia doing extremely well in Europe, actually, and it looks like the United Kingdom is about to go down. Rest in peace to the United Kingdom. And also, wow, I did not even pay attention. Paraguay is going insane on Brazil, but it is 2055. Greenland is the strongest nation in the world, just barely. So they will be deleted. North Korea is just on the precipice, and Mexico's also there. So I'm assuming Mexico is going to be next. Japan might get some territory as well. And it's going to be very interesting to see. The Bahamas, to me, seems like to be in a pretty good spot. Ukraine goes down to Estonia. Estonia looks really good. Also, Norway looks great in Europe, but I mean, I don't really think any of these European nations are going to do anything. Paraguay looks pretty damn good in South America as well. Also, we have nations like Spain taking over some of the American land, so that's pretty interesting. But coming up on 2060, it is going to be Mexico, of course. So hopefully we're back to taking out people elsewhere, but it could be the Bahamas next up on the chopping block. I mean, they're taking a lot of this land here. Of course, Japan is taking some land, but it's mostly going to be the Bahamas. I think the Bahamas will probably be next on the chopping block as well. Mali goes down in Africa. They were a pretty big power player, but I mean, basically everywhere else besides like Asia, like I'd say Asia and North America clearly seem like the two places where we are going to get the winner out of. Europe is just way too small in its own right. While they might start blobbing up, I think it's going to be a lot harder for them to blob up than some of these people. In the Bahamas, clearly next on the chopping block, which means Japan likely will go down next. Very interesting in its own right. I mean, we will see if Japan gets deleted next, but it's probably pretty likely. Now we have 4 different players in the Americas with Spain. It looks like Cuba and Costa Rica all there. So that's pretty interesting. I mean, those people will be gaining a lot of that land. I think North Korea is kind of next on the chopping block after Japan, though, because they're going to be taking over a lot of the Japanese land. I mean, they've already taken over South Korea as well, it looks like. So they're in a pretty good position, but, you know, you don't want to be the best player here. Like, Australia is in a great position because they haven't lost any land, but they really haven't gained any land either. And 2070 is coming up, and it's going to be Japan going down. They are much bigger than anyone else around them, but finally they are deleted. It looks like Costa Rica could come on the chopping block. They aren't that high, though. But yeah, North Korea for sure is the next one up, in my personal opinion. We will see. Spain is gaining a ton of land, though. Spain could become one of the stronger players in Europe itself as well. And Brazil has a really weird looking shape, but I mean, they're honestly doing solid in their own right. North Korea is getting kind of destroyed by Taiwan, actually. North Korea, oh my God, that is insane. North Korea gets conquered before they actually can get deleted by me. So it looks like someone else will be being deleted. It's probably going to be India or Costa Rica at this point. We will see right now. And coming up on it, it's Costa Rica, just barely. They barely beat out India. It's not looking good for Spain. It's not really looking good for India as well, because they're going to be scooping up a lot of land. But I think Spain is going to be next on the chopping block. So that's a lot of land in Europe itself. So it looks like France is going to take over a lot of that land. It does mean some consequences for everyone, though. But that's very interesting to see how that goes down. Uzbekistan is also doing extremely strongly in Central Asia. I mean, of course, Estonia has been doing well. Like I've been saying before, Turkey's been doing well as well. But yeah, I mean, Finland, I'd say, and Estonia are also in just really good spots. But year 2080 comes up, and Spain is definitely in first place. So Spain will be getting deleted. That means a lot of land from Samoa and Costa Rica, or in Cuba, and I guess Samoa, Cuba, probably Iceland, I guess Norway over here, and whoever this is, which is Guam. They will all be getting a bunch of land because they're going to be eating up a lot of that. And it looks like Uzbekistan just goes down. So that's kind of a major player in Central Asia, does get deleted. But this is a lot of land in North America just getting scooped up by just a couple of these nations. It is really interesting to see places like Guam and Samoa become the strongest nation in the book here, because they were just somehow next to like Japan, or they were next to the United States, and they just move their way into really good territory, which is just so funny to see. But coming up on year 2085, we will be deleting India. India is barely larger than Cuba at the moment, so rest in peace to India. That, I mean, India, they played a while, but they just got a little bit too big for their own britches. So now it's a lot of land for Bhutan, Iran, and of course the Maldives. I was thinking to Sri Lanka, but It's actually the Maldives there. Western Sahara goes down. This means that Morocco is doing pretty solidly. I mean, I was going to say France is doing well. They got a lot of land, but Andorra itself is doing kind of interestingly well for a microstate. You got the Netherlands in Northern Europe, and I don't know. We are on year 2090 though, so Cuba, rest in peace to you guys. That's going to mean land for Iceland, land for Ecuador, and land for a place like Colombia. So it's going to be interesting to see who takes all that. It seems like Samoa is going to get the majority of the land though. So it seems like Samoa could be next on the chopping block, and Kyrgyzstan as well in the Russian territory, European territory. I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see who goes down next. Iceland is in a pretty good position at the moment. I'd say again, like places like Indonesia, Australia, even Paraguay down here, like are all in really good positions because you don't want to be too big. You just want to be big enough where you can survive without being on the chopping block. And Samoa is the next one to go down. Rest in peace to Samoa. That means a lot of land for Guam and Ecuador and Iceland, of course. So I would assume it's either going to be Guam, Ecuador, or Iceland next on the chopping block. Probably going to be Guam, but we will very much see who wins. It does seem like Ecuador is taking over a lot of that land, so they could be kind of in a deadlock, which is going to be really interesting. There's also a lot of battles going on all across the world. You have Sudan doing extremely well in Africa. Poland also doing pretty solid in Europe. I mean, they haven't really expanded that much, but they look to be doing really solid. I'm just hoping to see someone come out of this between Argentina and Paraguay. I mean, I just want someone to win out of here because it will be really interesting to see a South American champion, but coming up on 5 years, it is Guam barely edging out Iceland, and Iceland is probably going to be next on the chopping block just because they're going to be taking over a lot of that new land there. But Ecuador is also kind of in the same boat, but I think Iceland is probably in a worse position. Yeah, Iceland is taking over a ton of that land. Also, Taiwan is taking over a bunch of that land in Asia itself. So it's gonna be very interesting to see what happens with Taiwan. I mean, Taiwan, Guam, Samoa, a lot of these nations just got extremely big in their own rights from being island nations, taking over a lot of this East Asian land and North American land, and kind of set them up in a bad way. But someone like Australia right now, they just took over New Zealand. So I think Australia is in a good position for one of the larger nations. And coming up on statistics right now, Iceland barely edges out Taiwan, and rest in peace, Iceland. You guys had a great game, but you just don't want to take over too much land. You just want to be in a nice spot like Finland is right now, or Australia, or whoever wins between Paraguay and Argentina, because this battle has been going on forever at this point. But yeah, wow. Also, Sudan is doing extremely well in Africa at the moment. And Libya over here is also doing well. You also have a ton of other nations, but okay. It looks like Argentina does eventually win that war, basically. Argentina is looking really good in South America. You have a lot of major players here. I mean, even France, who is kind of small at the moment, I think is in a good position to, potentially win this. Ecuador is clearly the biggest. They have all of North America, so they have to be going down. Hopefully this splits up North America between more than just like one nation, but rest in peace to Ecuador. Yeah, I think it should be a nice little 3 split, but Taiwan will be probably going down next just because they are huge at the moment. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see. Kyrgyzstan has really just kind of slid under the radar. They've always been pretty big, but they haven't really taken over any huge chunks of territory in a while, so hopefully when Taiwan gets deleted in just a couple seconds, they won't get too big. But I mean, honestly, I'm expecting them to kind of take that next spot. But Taiwan is going down. It's probably going to be between like just all the weird nations in North America is just so funny to me because all these island nations, Antigua and Barbuda, Colombia, you also have Morocco somehow in the Americas. I don't know, does it make sense? No, but it's so funny in its own right. And Kyrgyzstan's taking over a lot of that land. Vietnam is also doing well when they've been pushed out of basically Vietnam itself by Laos. Like, they don't have any land in Vietnam, but they have a lot of land elsewhere. But yeah, that is just, these guys are way too big. Kyrgyzstan, Palau is also pretty huge in their own right. So that's very interesting. And yeah, it looks like coming up on year 2120, it's going to be Kyrgyzstan. And Kyrgyzstan is getting deleted. Antigua and Barbuda. There's a lot of land for people to take over. Like, look at all this land for Antigua and Barbuda. There's also a ton of land for Vietnam and a ton of land for Bhutan and just a lot of land in general. And wow, that's kind of crazy. Vietnam is immediately going to be one of the biggest players in the world. Finland is also getting extremely huge in their own right. I feel bad because I really wanted Finland to win, but I think this is going to put them over the top. Maybe not in a bad position at the moment, but they do not seem to be in a great position to win this entire thing, especially when they are so big at the moment. And 2025 is coming up, 21-25, and it's going to be Antigua and Barbuda barely edging out Vietnam, and Vietnam is still taking over land. So it's going to be interesting. Morocco is going to get a bunch of land. Colombia is going to get a bunch of land. And just between those two, it's going to be a big thing. And see if they can beat out Vietnam. And the thing is, Vietnam was just a tiny nation a couple years ago. And now they're this huge, massive nation in their own right. There's only 45 nations left. So we are coming down to kind of the edge. I'd say right now, again, people that I would say are my clear favorites at the moment: Argentina, Australia, Sudan, Libya, even the Netherlands and France. They all seem to be in pretty good position where they can scoop up a lot of land, but they're not going to get too strong where they're going to be deleted because they're the strongest nation in the world. And we are going to delete Vietnam right now. Rest in peace to Vietnam. They were doing extremely well, and now Colombia is next on the list, but it could also be Bhutan, or it's probably going to be Finland, just because that's a lot of land for Finland to eat up. A lot of land for Indonesia to take as well. Indonesia is actually in a really good spot, because it looks like they're going to take over a lot of land, but not too much where they really become a huge power and a huge threat in terms of the land size. Maybe not. Maybe they are taking over a bunch of land, but I mean, Finland's looking really good, honestly, at the point. Colombia is also looking solid, but it looks like Colombia is losing a lot of land in their home territory, so that will be pretty interesting to see. But 21-35, Finland's the biggest nation, so rest in peace to Finland. Colombia, Morocco, Indonesia, Bhutan, all on the chopping block. Australia is also technically on there because they haven't been that big, but I mean, a lot of land is getting swallowed up right now, so we'll see if that really changes in the coming years. Estonia is getting a lot bigger. Turkmenistan is doing pretty well at the moment, and of course Bhutan is doing extremely well. But there's a lot of people still on the chopping block. I mean, Africa and Europe are still just total messes, while Asia and North America and even Oceania, like, they all kind of have set leaders and they're kind of the biggest nations in the world. But 21-40 coming up, Bhutan, just you're a little too big for your own good. Most of that land is going to go to two nations, so it's probably going to be between Indonesia and Turkmenistan for the next one to go down. We will see who is the loser here. I think it's going to be Indonesia. They look to be getting a ton of land in their own right, just all over East Asia. So that's going to put Australia on the next chopping block as well. So that's not looking good for them. I mean, this really does, like, when you delete the strongest nation, it really does, like, emphasize you don't want to be in Asia, or you don't want to be in North America, because you immediately become too big for your own good. I mean, the fact that Indonesia has the most of East Asia and it's probably going to be next on the chopping block is just so weird to me. And Indonesia is the one to die. And, like, the fact that places like Turkmenistan can become a huge power in its own right is pretty interesting. But yeah, I think it's going to be Turkmenistan or potentially Iran, and maybe, Singapore and Brunei are actually over here. So they might stop Australia from taking too much land. That is actually a very good omen for Australia. It's going to be between Turkmenistan and Colombia, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be Turkmenistan going down next. But yeah, Australia might have just got saved right there because they had Brunei and Singapore to kind of block them from getting any of the East Asian land. So very, very interesting. Australia does survive for one more day. Turkmenistan is the one to be deleted. Colombia is probably next on the chopping block, but it could be someone like Iran or even Estonia at this point. We will see. But yeah, Colombia is still doing extremely well. Morocco is actually in a really good position because they shouldn't take any land until really Colombia goes down, and it could be a while before Colombia goes down. Who is this? Nauru is also in East Asia. So there's a lot of different nations competing for this extra land between Brunei, Singapore, I mean, of course, Iran, and Colombia as well. So Estonia didn't get as big as I thought they would. I thought they'd get a lot bigger, but they're honestly in a pretty good position. It's really between Iran and Colombia for the next one to be deleted. And coming up, and let's see who it is. It is Colombia. It was very close between these two, like almost even. I mean, I think that really sets up Iran or Morocco. Like Morocco could win in these next 5 years and get that big. Peru is also doing pretty good, so they should scoop up a ton of land. But really, between these two guys, Paraguay and Argentina, I just hope one of them comes out of South America doing extremely well. And I mean, they really have survived a lot longer. Like I said, I thought they would. I mean, the DRC and Tunisia are the two African powers at the moment that are doing the best. I'd say the Netherlands got conquered by France. So France is pretty much the European power besides Estonia. And I think Estonia will be deleted pretty soon. So it is between someone like Italy and some of these other nations. Wow. Tunisia goes down to Italy itself. So Italy's taking over a chunk of that African land. And 2160, it is Iran going down. That's a lot of land for someone like Estonia to eat up. And it's a lot of land for like Nauru also over here and Singapore to get. So we will see who wins there. I mean, I'm just hoping Estonia can last a little longer. They were kind of a really good player at the beginning of the game, and they've just been doing well ever since. Austria goes down, so there's only 3 major players in Europe right now with Italy, France, and Estonia. So almost everywhere except for Africa has really capitulated down. Ethiopia goes down, DRC goes down. So there's probably only about 10 players in Africa and 10 players elsewhere around the world. So we're going to see what happens there, but it looks like Nauru is probably next up on the chopping block. Yeah, Nauru, and then Morocco and Estonia are the next 2 up there. So I'm assuming it's going to be Morocco, Estonia, and Singapore. I mean, they're all the closest to the land here. So it's going to be one of those 3 going down next. I'd assume it's probably going to be Morocco or Singapore. I don't know. I don't think Estonia will get enough land to overtake Morocco here, but Singapore might. It looks like they are moving a little bit quicker than Estonia is, but I think it's probably going to be Morocco. It could be Estonia as well, though. I don't know. It's going to be a very close battle here in just a couple of years to see who takes over all this land. And I'm at this moment, I'm also seeing Italy is doing extremely well against France in Europe. Italy has just been doing insanely well, and coming up on the statistics, it is going to be Morocco getting deleted. So that means a ton more land for people like Singapore, honestly. They're going to be taking over a lot of that land in North America potentially, and a ton of land for Peru and basically anyone else who wants to get out to America. So it's going to be interesting to see if any of these European nations do get out there. The Ivory Coast, I haven't even seen them all game, and now they're in kind of a big position as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what goes on. But yeah, Estonia is just huge. They also have both France and Italy as puppets. So they basically own all of Europe, but they're pretty close to being on the chopping block. I don't know if they're bigger than Singapore or Peru at this point. And also Paraguay. I didn't realize this was Paraguay all the way up here. Wow. Paraguay is just huge in their own right. They might also get Argentina to collapse. So that will be very interesting. Singapore is going to go down. They are the biggest nation now. So that means a lot of land for places like Brunei and Australia to scoop up. Also, I mean, it probably means Estonia is next on the chopping block, but it will make Saudi Arabia, Peru, Paraguay even stronger in their own right. I would say Paraguay is actually in a really good spot because Estonia should be the next one to go down, and then probably Saudi Arabia or Australia. So they kind of are safe for a little bit. They're definitely not going to be the top player here, but I'd say it really looks best for people like Italy or even some of these African players, because some of the African countries are just in really good positions where even if they don't do that well, they could still be doing well. I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see. But yeah, the fact that France, Italy, and even places like Estonia are still in this game is just so interesting to me. And I guess I just skipped over the time to delete. But yeah, I mean, of course, it's going to be Estonia. So I'm not really worried about that. I will do the next deletion on 2185. So it probably will be between Iran and Peru, but there are a ton of nations that are taking over a lot of this land. Israel, I've never even seen them do this well. Also, Saudi Arabia gets conquered by Israel. So it looks like it's basically has to be Peru next up on the chopping block. Australia has a ton of land. Israel has a ton of land. There are a lot of players here, but we will see who's top dog right now. It is Peru, just barely. So that means Paraguay should get a ton of land. I mean, Israel and Australia are already going to get a ton of land as well. So there's only 10 nations left. While Argentina is a puppet, it's still going to be doing extremely well for the moment. I mean, you just don't want to be the biggest nation here, and places like Argentina and even, yeah, again, all these African countries are going to be doing extremely well, while places like Israel and Paraguay and Australia just immediately get on the chopping block really quickly. I mean, look at Italy as well. They're kind of getting destroyed by Israel right now, but we'll kind of see. Statistics-wise, Australia barely beats out Paraguay to be the one to be deleted at this moment. Rest in peace, Australia. I really expected you guys to do well, and you guys did do extremely well. I just don't know. Can Israel take over more land than Paraguay does? I mean, probably. Actually, at this moment, they probably will, but I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see who does. I mean, I think it has to be Israel's going to take over just a little bit more land, but Israel and Paraguay are going to be the two next nations to be deleted. Argentina and Australia, my two favorites for a while. They both do go down. France also becomes a puppet of Paraguay. So coming up on 21.95, it's going to be Israel just barely over Paraguay. And yeah, it looks like Paraguay's up next on the block, but there's a ton of land to be scooped up. And it's all coming from these nations. Like, basically the winner of this are from Africa or Europe, basically no matter what, because Paraguay is going to go down and they're the last like North American place left. And all the Asian nations besides potentially, I mean, I guess France is not an Asian nation, but they have a bunch of land everywhere. But coming up on the year 2200, and the biggest nation, of course, is going to be Paraguay at the moment. But we are down to just 6 nations left. It is France in France. Of course, Italy is taking over a ton of land right now. The Seychelles are doing well in East Africa. You've got Uganda still left. You've got the Ivory Coast, and you've got Angola. And there is a lot of free land that's probably going to go to mostly France. Like, France is definitely next on the chopping block. But we will wait an extra, actually, 10 years this time, because I'd rather like have these guys take over the extra land before just deleting them immediately. I mean, I think it will definitely be France as the biggest one in just a moment. I mean, look how much land they're taking up in East Asia, and just they might become the main world power here. But I mean, just like look at these guys. I mean, I'll just wait until all the land is capitulated first. But wow, the Seychelles go down. They do get conquered, and it looks like all the land has basically been colonized at the moment, and the largest nation is going to be France, so they will be deleted. And then just once, I mean, we'll see. It's definitely going to be Italy, but Uganda also goes down. So there's 3 more nations. We're going to wait until this land gets colonized. I don't know who it's going to be. I think it will probably be Italy, but there still is a ton of land between the Ivory Coast and Uganda or Angola that they could also take over. So we're going to see who wins out of these 3. I mean, I'll leave it for a little bit as well, but we just need to see, once all this land is colonized, who is in first place. They will be deleted, and it will be a 1v1 from the last 2 nations to see who's the strongest, weakest nation in the entire world. Italy is doing well. You know what they say, Italy somehow just always comes out of it better than they should be doing. So it looks like almost all of the land is colonized now. I will leave it to Italy to do basically the rest out there in East Asia, but I don't know. I would say, honestly, right now, I would assume it's going to be the Ivory Coast that's going to be deleted, but coming down to this main moment, it is just barely the Ivory Coast. So now I'm going to put on a time lapse between Angola and Italy, and we're going to find out who the strongest, weakest nation in the world is. And that was honestly extremely quick. I wasn't really expecting Italy to go down that quickly, but Angola is the strongest, weakest nation in the entire world.